Hello and welcome. My name is David Musgrave from Winthrop Development Consultants, and I'm going to be telling you about GP Power Tools and how it can solve all of your pain points within the Microsoft Dynamics GP product. The way we'll look at this is through a series of example issues and then show how GP Power Tools is able to resolve those for us. For example, if you've ever needed to capture logs for a support issue, you can now do that with GP Power Tools with a single click to start and a single click to stop, and it will capture up to 5 different logs, which can then be emailed to your support consultant or support partner. If you also need screenshots, instead of having to capture those manually and copy them into Word, you can capture them automatically. A single click will open the screenshot window, which shows you all the windows that are open, and then you can select which ones of those you want to send. It also generates a system summary report with all of the information that a consultant would want. If you're using a very high resolution monitor, you've probably noticed that GP does not scale very well and that the font becomes extremely small and hard to read, or that some of the fonts are very large on some elements of the window while others are very small. So GP Power Tools comes to the rescue, allowing you to fix the font and scaling issues very easily just with a few clicks. If you're running on a terminal server that might not have an email client installed, you can send emails from within GP Power Tools to log support issues. It will include automatically a template that you've created so that can be filled in by the user and then sent. If you are finding the navigation menus a little bit too much, knowing how large the product is, you can find any window you want just by pressing Ctrl F, typing in a few keywords or just one word, and it will list everything that it finds in the menus that matches that, and then double clicking on the find window will allow you to select the item that you've asked for. GP will often tell you that a transaction is being edited by another user, but it doesn't tell you who. So GP Power Tools for SOP and POP documents will actually list the user that is editing the document already so that you can contact them if necessary. It also has a nice little calculator inside GP, which is handy on a published app situation or a terminal server installation where you might not have access to the Windows calculator. If you want to know anything about where data is stored or what a particular column in a SQL table is, GP Power Tools allows you to explode the dictionary and get hold of all the resource information, and that works for forms and windows and tables and reports, all the security objects, as well as warnings and messages. You just type in what you know and it'll fill in the rest. If you want to know where a particular piece of data is stored, the Resource Finder window will look at that piece of data and identify all of the tables that column exists in, and then filter it based on the data you've entered so that you have a list of exactly where that data is within the database. There is also a Preview Data button which will allow you to actually look at the data filtered by whatever you've entered. If you use SQL to produce security reports for your auditors, you will probably be using the resource descriptions table, which is populated with the forms and reports in GP, but it doesn't by default populate everything. So GP Power Tools populates all of the other security resources, such as posting permissions, document access, and navigation list access. If you want an alternative to Power User, because Power User cannot be edited, it actually bypasses the security system, GP Power Tools will create a super user, which is a single role with access and a single task with access to everything within GP. It should be used instead of Power User. If you get a security error, the standard "you don't have privileges" error doesn't really give you much information. The window that you're trying to open might not be the one that caused the error. So GP Power Tools will add extra information so you know exactly which has caused the error. It can also have the security profiler open automatically and capture the details of that error so it can be exported and sent to your support consultant. If you want to know how security was granted or how security was not granted, you're able to look at that with the security information window and see what access they have. Opening the system level will allow you to see what choices are available to give someone access to a particular resource. You can also use this to show who will be affected if you make changes to a particular task or role. Now, auditors are often asking exactly what people have access to, so the Security Information Resources window can allow you to display exactly what resources are contained within a task, within a role, or granted to a particular user and company. And you can also include the tasks and roles in that list so you can show how they got access. If you have two users with the same security information, such as the same roles and tasks, but you need to take something away from one user without affecting other users, you would normally have to duplicate tasks and roles to adjust that level of security. With GP Power Tools, we have deny-based security where you can actually leave the tasks and roles alone and just deny resources from one or another user. If you want to know what the users are accessing, this security log functionality will allow you to capture statistics of exactly which users and how many users are accessing particular windows or resources within GP. You can also log it at a detailed level, so if you want to get not just the number but exactly when each access was made. And this can be exported out to Excel. If you'd like to create security tasks, you can do that by example. All you need to do is open the security profiler or look at the security log, select all of the items that you're interested in, and then click create, and you'll be able to create a task or update a task or create a role or update a role with those items in it. If you want to analyze the security, you can look at that with the Security Analyzer, which has over 40 queries, and it looks for particular issues that we know that are not good in security. For example, having the security not enabled in one particular company is a security risk. So it produces lots of reports and will help you get the best out of security. If you've ever entered data into the wrong company, you'll know that it's a lot of work to void it and get it re-entered into the correct company. So GP Power Tools provides visual cues, both in the toolbar and with the option to have a colored background, which can be nice and bright for test companies, so that you can have a different color. It also supports binary streams multi-entity management by its default entity. If you've got a long company name that might not fit in the drop-down list, GP Power Tools can extend the size of the fields on the windows so that you'll be able to see the full name. This will help you ensure that you know exactly which company you're logging into, even if they only differ by the end characters. It does also remember the last company used. That definitely makes it a bit easier to use this window. If you want to change the order that companies are listed in the drop-down list, you can use the company login filter, and you can change to another order by its index, such as company name, company ID, or company database, or more interestingly, use a custom defined order where you can specify exactly what companies you want listed at the top and maybe put all your test and historical companies down the bottom. You can also add a database prefix or suffix to the company so that you can tell what the database is at a glance. If you've ever had your SQL password expire while you're in the middle of an action and you're actually logged into GP, you know that it can be very annoying and will throw you out of GP. So GP Power Tools can, on login, give you a reminder that your password is due to expire and take you to the window to make the change if necessary. If you've ever lost a window off screen, so you know it's open but you can't find it, GP Power Tools has an option to ensure that windows will never open off screen and are always returned back to the visible desktop. And this can happen with windows that remember their positions, such as the note windows. It's quite common to happen if you drag Windows onto a second screen and then start working on another machine which only has a single screen. If you want GP Power Tools to remember the window positions for all of the windows that you use, it does that with the window position memory functionality. The default windows are already set up for most of the common transaction inquiry and cards windows. You can add any window you wish in the product so that it gets remembered of both its window size and position. On login, if you want to get a little bit more control over the logins and not have the windows just sitting there, because someone could actually be running Dynamics but not actually logged into GP, which will not show in the activity table. So GP Power Tools can automatically close login and company login windows for you. It also can prevent access until the system is fully loaded. Other things that can make Dynamics run smoother, for example, are closing the report writer window automatically, which does mean that background processes will not get held up by a report writer window being left open. It also has the option to clean up activity records for stranded or users that have been disconnected, and will fix all the activity records for them. If you want to make sure that you're not wasting your licenses, you can automatically log out idle users, and there are many options in the automatic logout functionality, including different levels or times that you can select. You can ask it to be a little bit more aggressive when your license count gets low. You can select the business hours so it doesn't log out during the standard business day. It also has smart options such as automatically saving data or closing inquiry windows for you. Other things that you can do to manage your user licenses is to have an understanding of who's logging in when and how many users were logged in at a particular time. The user activity log allows you to capture those statistics and shows you the maximum number of users logged in each day, and you can then click on that column and it will show you who exactly was logged in, and you can check for whether they've got multiple sessions. You can also capture detail so you can keep every single login action that happens. So if you do have users that are running multiple logins, you can limit how many logins a user is allowed to use so that they don't take up too many of your licenses. You also have the options to set up exemptions or allow always logging into a particular company, or even controlling how many users can log into a particular company so that there are licenses available for other companies. If you want to, you also have the option to reserve a user license. So this would mean that you can make sure that the administrator or the financial controller always have access by reserving at least one license for them. It does reduce the maximum number of licenses available for other users, but can be very useful in a system to make sure that you can get access. GP Power Tools also allows you to store additional information against users, such as some user-defined fields, but more interestingly, the default site, which is automatically used to populate on transaction windows, as well as the email address, which is automatically used or has the option to be used when you reset passwords to send emails to those users. If you've got many workstations, you'll know that making a change to a dex.ini setting and having to visit every one of those workstations is a lot of work. So use the dex.ini configuration window to select the dex.ini changes you want made, and on next login those changes will be made for you. If you ever have some sort of problem, the first thing you're going to be asked to do is disable customizations. So while you're troubleshooting, you can use dictionary control to disable the triggers and alter or modified windows for customizations and ISV products. It doesn't need to change security, but it will allow you to get back to the original windows. It also has the option to disable VBA and Visual Studio, but that does require you to log in again. If you need to update launch files without having to visit every workstation, you've got the launch file configuration window, which allows you to put in rules to make changes, such as changing the paths used for custom forms and reports, or even adding a product. If you've got a system where you have multiple versions of the same window, instead of having to have a separate user that you would use to log in to see a different version of the window, you can, with one user, ask GP Power Tools to provide a dialog when you open the window and on the fly select which version you want. Whether you want an alternate version or a modified version or the original, you can just select it from the dialog. GP Power Tools has the option to remember not just the system password, but also the GP Power Tools administrator password. So it only needs to be recorded once per session. And this is very handy because it allows you to open Windows without having to be asked for the password each time. This feature was added into GP 2018, but only for the system password, and GP Power Tools has it for all versions. If you've got a situation where you've got multiple configurations or application folders for either multinationals or different companies that have different forms and reports, you can control which companies a user has access to based on the actual configuration that they launch from. Works very nicely to limit which company they can have access to. With GP Power Tools, you also have the option to customize the homepage websites. You can take the Connect website and repurpose it, and you can also take the Intelligent Clouds Insight and repurpose it. Now, Intelligent Cloud Insights was removed for version 18.4, but if you still want to have a repurposed website, GP Power Tools will add a website that you can then use for your own purposes. Making sure that you've got the correct versions of products installed is very important. Having mismatched versions is a potential data damaging issue. So GP Power Tools tracks the maximum version installed on any system and then will warn you if a version of a product does not meet the same version as that system version. If you need to get parameters for a script, particularly because the software development kit is not updated and you might not be able to find the parameters you're looking for on the web articles that get published, you can use the resource information window in GP Power Tools to display parameters. It displays parameters for about 90%. Not all of them are available, so in that case you might have to ask someone. If you've got an issue that cannot be replicated, this is what GP Power Tools, as the originally named support debugging tool, was created for. It can register triggers and capture logs up to a particular event, and when that event occurs, it can save the logs, display warnings, or send emails, and help you find the causes of an event that you can't replicate under normal circumstances. GP Power Tools also has a suite of very powerful development tools and built within it with triggers and scripts that can use a combination of Dexterity, SQL, C# and VB.NET code. There are no extra steps for deployment or upgrades. It works with Modifier, it works with a web client, and you can use this to replace VBA, Visual Studio Tools, or even Dexterity add-in code. We have a number of free samples available from the GP Power Tools portal. Just go to the portal page and click on samples, including SQL search lookups, which will give you a case-insensitive search for vendors, items, and customers. You've also got a great functionality with tracking changes for customers, vendors, and items. And these samples can be downloaded and extended as you wish because the code is available to you. When you're creating your customizations, you can put everything that's part of a customization together into a project. This allows it to be imported and exported as one entity, and includes also the ability to add customization maintenance objects such as custom forms and reports to that project, so they're exported together. If you ever have a script that you need to run on a regular basis where you've got some sort of problem and the user has to contact the DBA and say, please run this script for this particular customer, you can turn these into self-service scripts where the end user can, from a menu, select the script, answer some questions, or that can be populated from a window, and it can run the script to perform whatever actions that you desire. And this can happen without the user having any access to be able to change or see the script. If you want to get data onto reports, you can use GP Power Tools to create custom RW functions which are added as calculated fields in Report Writer, and they can be used to either retrieve data or perform calculations. This also works on the web client. You can have the option of creating external service-based architecture web services, which can then called, and they can execute custom code within Dynamics using GP Power Tools, and they can then either gather and return the data requested or perform a desired actions. If you'd like to create custom scheduled or timed events, you can do that within GP Power Tools, and they can be weekly, monthly, daily, repeating every so many minutes, or happen automatically on login or log out. You can also control exactly which companies or users the events occur for. If you want to create a document outside of GP that then has the ability to drill back into GP, you have the option of creating custom URL drillbacks, which can either perform any action you desire or go and open, which could include opening a window or inquiry window and displaying data. But exactly what it does is completely up to you. As a developer, if you're using the script debugger capabilities within Dynamics, with GP Power Tools installed, you have the option to it displays the script debugger context window, which can then be used to change the context of which dictionary the script debugger is active for without having to edit dex.inize and restart GP. We can also use GP Power Tools as a developer to speed up our development cycle, so we can prototype code in and test it and make sure it's functional within Dexterity or SQL or C# or VB, and once we've got it correct, we can then export that out and generate pass-through code and just cut and paste that straight into our development environments. So that allows us to test it all, get it working before we actually put it into the main products. There are times where the script logging functionality is not available. In particular, service-based architecture, when that's running, it disables the script logging. So GP Power Tools offers dynamic trigger logging, which allows us to record that a particular scripts have executed and capture values of data at particular points. Very useful for supporting and debugging service-based architecture. When you move between servers and all your logins and database users get messed up, GP Power Tools can fix all of those and recreate all the logins. It can either automatically generate passwords, or you can use a fixed password, and those passwords can also be emailed to the user if their email addresses are set up. Database validation also has the option to make sure that all of the table structures are correct within GP, and if they're not correct, it has the ability to fix them without losing any data, and it will be able to rebuild that table for you. It also looks for junk data in the Dynamics Utilities tables and account framework mismatches, all of which will cause problems with your upgrades. The SQL login maintenance window can be used to reset multiple users' passwords or change their password policy options at one time. And again, if the email address is available for the user, it can send an email to each user with their new password that they can then be forced to change on next login. If you wish to copy settings between systems, you can use the XML table import and export windows. These are really good for transferring small amounts of data. So, for example, security settings that were created on a test server can then be implemented onto the live server without having to copy the entire database or re-enter manually. If you want to copy settings between users, you are able to do so using the Copy User Settings window, which identifies all of the tables which contain the user ID or user ID and company ID values, and you can then use those to copy data, and this supports all third-party products as well, so you can replicate from one user to another within the same company or from one user to multiple companies. The SQL Server has the ability for you to have triggers that might have been added onto tables. They're a little bit difficult to see because the triggers themselves might be across multiple tables and you'd have to open each table to see the triggers. So the trigger control window allows us to see all of the triggers, and we can temporarily enable and disable them here and debug if they are causing us trouble. And if they are, we can also delete a disabled trigger. If we ever use the SQL maintenance window to recreate tables, it will lose the data that is stored in that table. GP Power Tools will identify that there is data in a table and offer to make a backup copy and automatically restore it. So if you do recreate tables with GP Power Tools installed using the standard SQL maintenance window, you won't lose data anymore. So if you're interested, it is a really good value subscription. GP Power Tools is available for GP 2010 onwards, with the latest version for V14 or 2015 onwards. You can have a 330-day trial. It is free for partners. They get not for resale keys. And all you got to do is select the modules and with the features that you want, and we actually suggest that you have all of them. So thank you very much for having a listen to what GP Power Tools can do for you. If you want more information, please visit winthropdc.com GPPT, and that will take you to our portal. Thank you.